Hey guys, I'm Aditya Thakur and welcome back to Newton School. In this video, we'll get started with classes and objects in Python. Now, this is again a very important concept when learning Python programming, since Python is an object-oriented programming language. So it is important to know what are classes, how do we use them, and what are objects. I'll take up the basics first and then move on to how can we define our class in Python. So before going into that, I am Aditya Thakur. I am an instructor here at Newton School and you can reach out to me through link in the description. Newton School is itself a platform which prepares you for your career in tech. They have courses designed for freshers, working professionals and also for women with no tech background. They'll first train you for 6 months, help you become an amazing full stack developer. And they have a network of 300 great companies who hire from them. So after the training is done, they'll ensure you get placed in the best companies in the country. And the best part is they have a pay after placement program, so you don't have to pay anything until and unless you are placed with a minimum 5 lakh CTC. Talking about the Launchpad, it's an initiative taken by Newton School for people who want to start coding from scratch so they can learn the programming languages absolutely for free. This video would also be available on the Launchpad section of Newton School. So let's get started with it. What I'll do is I'll go over to newtonschool.co, take it to code, and I'll explain it there itself. So if you do not have an account, you can quickly sign up. Since I do already have one, I'll just log into my account. This should take some time, but after you log in, you'll have to go over to the playground section. We'll wait for it to load. And once it does, we'll go over to the playground section, go down to algorithm playground, and you can create a new playground on open an existing one. I'll just quickly create a new one and it will take me to the code editor. Here, before getting started, I'll select my compiler. Since we have been working with Python 3, I'll just select that. Okay, now we are ready. So what are classes and what are objects? Classes are basically blueprints from which different objects are created. Blueprint as in it tells what all would be there. So for example, let us say like there is a class of cars, right? So what is the general thing that comes to your mind when you think of cars? So it would be something like a car has 4 wheels. It could be like in different colors, red, green, and one of the functions of the car is to drive, to carry people around, right? So number of wheels and color are certain properties of the car, and the function that it carries around people is a method, right? It's a method, function or method, same thing. So functions and methods, a class would tell you like what are all the different properties that is have. An object would be a real entity that is made upon. So let us say like there is a real world entity. Let us say like Maruti Suzuki 800. It's a car. It's a real world entity. It has 4 wheels. It could be in any color, red or something like that. It has this function. So a class is the blueprint. Like I have told you, anything that drives you around that has certain color and certain properties would be a car, and a real world entity made from it would be a object. That is the object. So Maruti 800 is the object. So it wouldn't be clear as such, but let me just show it how we can do it through code. So to define a class, I'll type in class, which is like the keyword, and in front of it I'll write like my car, right? Or let us say there is a class called cars. Now this class could have like a num value, which is the number of tires. Let me just type in 4. And this is the simple way in which you can create a class. You use the class keyword, typed in cars, then after indentation you can define certain property for which I'm using num, which we are using to type in the number of wheels a car is having. And now if I want to create an object, so it could be something like P1 is an object, and I'll type in cars and use these brackets. So P1 is now an object of the class car. So P1 could be anything like P1 could be any car, which is an object of the class cars. And now if I want to know like this is the car, P1 is a car. I want to know how many doors it has or how many tires it has. So I can use P1 dot num. And now if I run this program, what should happen is it's basically would print out the number of doors on that car. So we have defined the value of num here, and after I run it, it should print out 4 to console. So what is happening is basically I have my class, which is a blueprint. It's a car, and P1 is an object of it. It has certain value. It would have certain properties of its own. We'll see how to define them. But for now, P1 is an object of class cars. And when I type in P1.num, so it's basically printing out how many number of tires does this object have. So this is like a simple representation. Let's look at a more vivid example, as in which would explain things better. Before we go into that, there is this one function that I want to show you, which is the init function. The init function is a function that is, the first of all the classes, of all the class that have function. Init function is the one which is always executed when the class is initialized. So we use the init function to assign values to object properties and other operations that are important when we. So how it works is, since it's a function, we'll have to use the def keyword, define, which is used to define a function, and we'll type in init and then the 2 brackets. Now this takes in certain parameters. One is the self. One, since we are working with the class called car, so let us say number of tires, and one more variable called, let's work with colors. And how I'll do this is basically I'll type in self dot number of tires equal to number of tires, and self dot color equals to color. So this is like how we use the init function. And now if I were to create a new object, what I'll have to do is, let me say there is Maruti, a car object that I want to create. So I'll type in cars, cars, and let us imagine a Maruti 800, which has the 4 wheels. So I'll type in 4, and it has like a color red. So red, right? Now what would happen is, from what I have done is basically I've created a class called cars and given it a init function. The init function is executed first. So what it does is it takes in 3 parameters. The self keyword is used to, we use the parameter as a reference to the current instance. So objects are created at an instance. So what was that particular instance of the object? We use it as a reference. And the self parameter is a reference to the current instance of the class, and it's used to access variables that belong to the class. So what is happening is it's the first parameter that we pass, and then we pass in number of tires and colors. It will do is it will initialize this number of tires equal to the one value that we are passing here, and color also to it. Now to create an object Maruti, what I'll do is I'll use the class name, pass in 4 and the color that I want to create. And now I can access these values by typing in print and type in my name of this particular object. So I'll type in Maruti dot color. I can print out the color and print Maruti dot number of tires. Let me just run this command once, and you'll see like red printed out to console. The value that we were passing, it is set to this color and now printed out to console, and 4. So this is our object created from this particular class, and we can use that object to print out the values to console, and we can use it at other places in the code as well. So this is like a basic example. We saw the init function, which is executed first. We saw how self works. It's an instance, so we use it to initialize the different values. And one last thing that I want to take up in this is basically how we can also, like, these are only properties right now, but a class can also have methods. So let us say I'll define a method which would be define drive car, right? And the drive car function, what it would take is it would take in this self, and I can print I am driving the car of color self dot color, right? And so what I have done is basically I have passed in this self to this function, and I'm using this self to get the value at that particular instance of the color. And once this function runs, it should print out I'm driving the car of color, and then the color that is being used. Since I'm creating the Maruti car here, what I can do is I can call the function using Maruti dot drive car, right? And let me run this program. I should also put in the brackets, and I'll get rid of these print statements. Alright, so what you'll notice is now I had put the brackets. So Maruti dot drive car, this is a function, so it needs the bracket, and what it will do is it will print out I am driving the car of color red. So this is how you can work with it. These are the properties that are defined. This is the method that is defined. A class has both properties as well as method. An object is an instance of the class. It is like a entity. So Maruti 800 is like an entity, and what I'm doing is basically I have created this object using this blueprint of the class, and then I'm using the object to run the method, the drive car method, and also I also used it to print out the different properties. So that is how you work with the classes and objects in Python. This was just a brief about object-oriented programming in Python, and you can also get rid of the objects, the different values if you want to, using the delete keyword, and you can also modify these values. So you can update Maruti dot color equals to blue, and now if I run this program, it should print out blue to console. So that is how you can change the different values by accessing them using Maruti dot color or something. You can modify the properties like that, and yeah, that is about it. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope the objects and classes do make sense to you, and if you're new here, do not forget to subscribe the channel and hit the notification bell icon to stay updated as we post the newer videos. We'll take up different concepts in this playlist, and thank you so much for watching.